Hi, Mr. DeJonge. I'm doing my book on Eclipse, which is the third book of Stephenie Meyer's series. She has written Twilight, New Moon, and now I'm on her third book of Eclipse, and I finished it, and I'm going to talk about it today. The plot of this story is it's telling about the three main characters' relationship. Bella, Edward, and Jacob, they are they're growing and they're falling apart, and they're just different things are happening and that's what this book usually mostly talks about. During most of during the previous two books, they have Edward and Jacob have butt heads, and they've not gotten along at all. So in this third book, Bella graduates from high school, and then on her graduation night, she had her party, and then Alice gets a vision of something coming that's going to be too strong for just the Cullens to fight off by themselves. So Bella comes up with an idea that the werewolves, or Jacob's group, could help and to fight off whatever is coming. Well, it ends up being newborn vampires that was created by an enemy vampire from the first book, Twilight. As in the first book, her boyfriend, I guess, he was killed by Edward, and so she was angry about that and wanted to seek revenge. She wanted to kill Bella as Edward had killed her significant other. So Bella tries to encourage and convince the guys and the groups to work together, even though they have many differences. So then, one of the Cullens, he was a newborn vampire and fought in a newborn vampire army once. So he knew the tactics and he knew how they fought and how they worked. So he trained the Cullens and the werewolves how to fight these newborn vampires and how to keep them off and to not let them destroy or hurt anyone. So the Cullens and the werewolves have to push aside their differences and try to find a way to work out and to protect Bella, the Cullens, and the werewolves all in this together. In the end, the newer vampires, ran by the enemy vampire, were all destroyed in battle, and they just were all gone. They completely were all put aside, killed by the Cullens and the werewolves. And then Jacob runs to help one of his fellow werewolves, Leah, as she was being attacked by one of the vampires, and the vampire crushed his bones. So Jacob was injured during this battle. His bones were broken, and he had to be taken back, and Mr. Carlisle Cullen, he helped, and he would be, his bones would be broken for a while. And so that's the plot of the story, the working out the conflicts to work together to keep everyone safe, to protect Bella, who's just human, so she's powerless compared to these magical, majestic creatures of werewolves and vampires. During the last chapter of this story, Eclipse, Edward asks Bella to marry him. So that is how this story went. That's how it ended. The most interesting part of the story was the time leading up to the fight. All the differences that were pushed aside, the way the werewolves and the vampires pushed aside their differences to work together to keep everyone safe, was kind of amazing, because there's people now in this world that don't do that. So it was good to see Stephenie writing to show that it can work. You don't have to be enemies for everything. You can push back your differences and figure out how to work together. My favorite character is Jacob. He is kind until Edward steps in the way. He does everything he can to keep everyone safe. He's a great leader, and even though he's emotional, he still has a good spot in his heart. The lesson that I think the main characters learn is that there will be times you'll have to get along with your enemies. You can't get along with everyone at all times, but there are times you will have to. You have to get along with them. You can't just sit here and pout and fight when things need to be done. I would recommend this book to ages 13 and up, and my opinion of the story was that it was good. I liked it. It showed how two groups who hated each other could work together. That's my first book talk. Thanks. Mr. DeJonge, I'm doing my second book talk, and it is on Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. In this book, a lot of stuff goes on. It's probably the most information I've had in one story that I've ever read. So, in Eclipse, Edward asks Bella to marry her. She says yes. So, in the beginning of Breaking Dawn, the two get married, and they have this big extravagant wedding, and they have friends and family, and then Jacob shows up, and then after that they go to their honeymoon, and they have adventures, and they do all this other stuff, and then something goes wrong. They figure out that Bella is pregnant, which shouldn't have happened, but since it's a vampire and a human, something went wrong, and she's pregnant. They called it a monster she was pregnant with, and so they were really worried about her. They wanted to abort the baby, but she told them no, that she wanted to keep the baby because she didn't feel it was right to kill something that could be human. And so he was upset about this. Then, as her pregnancy continues and grows, she starts to get sick, and it takes all her strength away, and she starts to get very unhealthy, and she's going downhill very fast. So they all try to keep her safe as much as they want to keep her as healthy and as good as she can be. They tell her father that she's in some hospital and that she can't be visited, so he won't come and try and figure out what is actually going on. Then, by the time she's getting ready to do, Edward he hears the baby's thoughts, and so then he kind of falls in love with the baby, and everything's good. But that night of that happening, Bella's placenta detaches, and she goes into labor. And then, so it was really intense. That was a very intense moment in the story, explaining what was happening and how they were controlling the situation. And then they also had outside happening was werewolves are trying to get in to destroy the baby before it was born, but that would hurt Bella, so Jacob was on Edward's side. So the Cullens and Jacob were all working together with Seth and Leah to fight off the werewolf clan. Then, after the baby is born, Bella seems to be dead, so Edward takes his venom from like a needle and he puts it into her heart, and then she just lays there motionless, and so Jacob thinks she's dead, so he goes in to kill the baby girl that was born. Her name was Renesmee, and then once he saw her, he imprinted on her, which is probably why Bella and Jacob had been so close during the whole entire time of all three other original books. So then Bella wakes up, and she is now a vampire. So then it describes her time of being a vampire, her changing from the human to the vampire, all the different things, the power she has now, the strength, the agility, and then she can now do anything and everything that Edward has. She smells human blood but doesn't even go after him. Then, as the child grows quickly, very quickly actually, and then one of the Cullens' cousins sees her, and they think that Edward and Bella have committed a crime of turning a baby or a child into a vampire, so she reports it to the Volturi, which is the lead group, kind of like, almost like our president who just runs everything on and controls everything that happens. So they come and they say they're going to destroy the clones because they've committed a crime that they really haven't done. It was because she was human. So then they have to get ready and fight them. So they get up as many vampires as they can to try to convince the Volturi that they hadn't committed a crime and that she really was just a half human, half vampire. Then when the Volturi gets there, Alice shows him shows her and that her power of the vision that she is just human, and then the child goes and shows the same thing because she has it where she can transport her memory to the man or anybody actually. So they're fine, they win, the clones win, Renesmee's safe, they're all safe, and then the Volturi goes back. So that's how that story went. My opinion on the book, I really like this. It was the most interesting book I've read. It had so much detail in it, and it just kind of flowed and had so much to look forward to, so much things happening, and I thought it was a great book. My favorite book of the series. I would recommend this to people 14 and up, probably because of the adult content and the intense situations happening during the story. The main characters are Bella, Jacob, and Edward, and they learn that things can be taken from you and changed so fast that in a blink of an eye, things can be different. And then, that's it. Thanks.